Keynote speaker for the day is Mr. Dileep Jain, founder from DJET Foundation from India. I welcome you, sir. Mr. Dileep's work can be summarized in 3 E's, that is entrepreneurship, education, and environment. The DJET Foundation works at grassroots level on the 3 E's. And Mr. Dileep served as the founding member of HIAL and was part of Sonam Wangchuk's core team as a volunteer in SecMol and iStupa project. He did his PGDM MBA from SPJIMR and is also a CA. He has worked in corporate sector for 7 years and thereafter joined a family business and was instrumental in its sevenfold growth. He was also co-founded a real estate company and served as its CEO. He is a public speaker and has spoken and taught on variety of topics. He is also on the path of learning, doing, and sharing. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. So you can unmute yourself now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can hear me, right?
Yes, I can
and
hear you.
also see the presentation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Good morning, everyone. So let me start. And thanks, Jazila Mustafa, for your kind introduction.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, so our topic today is research tools and approaches to improve effective response to climate change. So I just wanted to highlight on few words which is part of the topic, which is research. What research means is to search when you get lost. For example, when you go for a trek and you get lost, you use your maps and you use the compass to search to find the right path. And when you find the right path, you walk on that path, even if that's difficult or that's something not known or it's very inconvenient. But the whole idea of research is to search and to find the right path. The second word in this whole topic is effective response. What effective response basically means is that we need to use complete wisdom or holistic approach when we respond to a situation. For example, I have put in, say, a nutrient cycle, and there are two. One on the left says how a nutrient cycle would be in a pure ecological way, where whatever a man eats gets into a compost, which gets back to the soil, and it becomes soil for growing more food. So that's a complete cycle. Whereas the current nutrient cycle that we see in most cities is broken nutrient cycle, wherein what we eat gets flushed to create pollution, and then we have fertilizer and pesticide plants which helps to grow food. So in this way, the whole cycle is broken. So when I say effective response, means a response which is very holistic in its approach, understanding the cause and effect. And the third word in the topic is climate change. So I'm trying to give a definition of climate change more from a philosophical perspective, not necessarily a technical perspective. And according to me, what is climate change is nothing but a variation in one element leading to multiplier effect elsewhere. And as we all know that the planet is made of four basic elements, which is soil, water, air, and fire. When you combine soil with water, what we get is plants. When we combine soil, water, and air, what we have is animal. And when we add fire to it, we get human. So basically, the entire ecosystem of the planet is based on these four basic elements of soil, water, air, and fire. And plants, animals, and humans are nothing but, in a way, an outcome when these elements interplay themselves. If we understand this basic concept, we can appreciate that any one change in one of these elements would have a multiplier effect on the plants, the animals, and the humans. So understanding this whole system view, taking the whole system view, is very important for us to understand what climate change is and why it matters. If I go a little deeper into it and more from the context of India, I think the reality elsewhere in most developing countries is very similar. The idea here is not to criticize the current system, but what is the way that we can get out of it. So for example, in India, we see that most elements, this soil, water and air, are extremely polluted. We can go to any research report, any news articles, and we will find that because of, say, agriculture, because of industrialization, because of the so-called development, because of nuclear families, because of population growth, because of so many other things which are all due to Anthropocene movement, has led to severe extinction or pollution of basic elements of soil, water and air. So for example, the fertilizer, insecticides and pesticides have led to enormous erosion of soil. Similarly, the water, there are research reports which say that 70% of the water in India is unfit for consumption. Or for that matter, air is of a very poor quality. And that's true for, I think, most developing countries. The point I'm trying to drive here is, if soil, water and air are in bad shape, we should understand that it will have an impact on plants, animals and humans, because these are nothing but an outcome of the elements. Why do we see this? Because we have seen unprecedented economic growth in last century, or more so in last 50 years. If you see this graph, we see that from 1960 to 2020, the production or the consumption of, say, aluminum, concrete, plastic or synthetic fiber has zoomed 500-fold, zoomed 1,000-folds. This is primarily because of the development or the growth that we say will elevate masses out of poverty and bring happiness to all. This whole belief that the economic growth will lead to betterment has made us use so much of all these materials. And one can understand that when aluminum, concrete, plastic or synthetic fiber has grown so much, it is nothing but it would happen only when there is a negative impact on soil, water and air, because somewhere there will be mining, somewhere where there will be destruction of water bodies, somewhere there will be cutting of trees. Then only these things can grow. Corollary to this is, because the soil, water and air have got extinct, degraded, polluted, we see that world has lost 40% of plant species in last 50 years. The biodiversity of plant, we have lost 40%. Animals, we have lost 70% of biodiversity of animals in last 50 years. 70%, 68% to be precise. This is as per Living Planet Index. So basically what it means is that our relationship with nature is broken. And when the basic elements get extinct and polluted, obviously the plants and animals and humans will get impacted. And this is happening because our consumption, our capitalism, our economic growth is probably going beyond all limits. This is the cause of climate change, according to me. Now, we see this whole Eastern philosophy versus Western philosophy. The Eastern philosophy was more to do with spirituality and non-materialistic growth. This is what Buddha had proposed, and most Eastern countries were following it. But now this whole philosophy is getting replaced by new belief system that the growth of economy, the so-called growth of economy, which is given by the Western country, is good for the world, is good for people, is good for planet, good for everything. But that is not the case. It is not working out. Ecology, which is the reality of nature, is under threat. Ecology is real asset of the world, but it is under threat. Let's go to the other side of economy. This whole cycle I talked about, the effective response or understanding the holistic picture, it's very important, because when the cycles are broken, and we see this cycle broken for everything, not just nutrient cycle, but water cycle, carbon cycle, any cycle that we consider, it is broken. And when the cycle is broken, it creates opportunity for the economy. For example, in this case, when the cycle is broken, there are opportunities for waste management companies, there are opportunities for fertilizers, there is need for pollution control, there is need for water filtration, there is need for healthcare. So this all put together gives opportunity for economic growth, gives opportunity for migration and transportation, because when a system is local and self-sustained, there is no economies there. There is no barter. There is no exchange of goods there. But when the local is broken, when the roots at the local level are broken, the communities become vulnerable, but economy grow. Now, when the communities become vulnerable, they are dependent on the same economy. They can't sustain in their own local ecosystem. So we need to understand that when the cycles are broken and taken over by the economy world, it is creating a havoc on the planet. The whole idea that growth in economy will lead to poverty elevation is also not working. We see in India, and I'm sure it's same elsewhere, that top 10% of individuals were owning 45% of the national wealth in 1980s. Now they are owning 77% of the national wealth. The poverty levels are just increasing. So basically what you're saying is the top percentage of population is more and more capturing the wealth. The inequality is increasing. So this whole effect that the growth in economy and the wealth creation will help everyone come out of poverty and elevate, it's not working. It's only benefiting the capitalist, the big capitalist. It's not working. So why are we following this belief or myth that this is going to elevate and lift us out, when we know that this is destroying the planet? Again, why this is happening, there are many theories, but one of the theory definitely is that democracy is under threat. We see that electoral democracy, which is what India has been replaced as electoral autocracy in last few years. The human development index, we are ranking poorly on that every passing year. In some way, the democracy and capitalism are like a nexus where democracy provides fertile ground for capitalism to grow. And when it grows beyond limits, when it grows where it doesn't take care of the people, the planet, the ecology, the spirituality, it is only serving purpose of few. This consumerism and capitalism, the so-called Western gift to us, is not even lifting millions out of poverty, and it is leading to decentralization and control with few people. This is, I think, a big cause where we need to redefine what growth and development should be in the new century if we want to really work on climate change. So our research must be genuine. Our research must really understand what the real problems are currently. The biggest problem through whatever search we do in the world are extreme weather events, natural disaster, climate change, water crisis. These are the top biggest problems of the world. But we hear through most medias, through most uh, corporates and governments that everybody is working for economic growth, for stock market, for digitization, when those are not the biggest problems of the planet. So the focus is not to work on the biggest problem of the planet, but to work on something which is only serving agenda of some people. Now we need to really ponder on the question of, can we have unlimited materialistic growth on a planet which is an infinite planet? Planet is infinite by real resources, but we are hoping that the economy and the capitalism will have an infinite growth based on notional resource of money. The whole definition of sustainability has been twisted from ecology to sustainability of profit. So if one mine or one forest gets destructed and the company has to sustain its profit, it will go and destroy another forest. That sustains the profit of the company, but definitely doesn't sustain the planet. So economy in many ways is almost inversely correlated to ecology. And if it is left untamed the way it is currently, it is behaving like a cancer which is eating the whole body. I am myself a product of economy, and I'm not against it because it has its own merit. But when it is left untamed to grow without any limits, to grow to serve agenda of few, then it is doing more harm than benefit to the entire planet, not just to few people. We need to go back to the Eastern philosophy, or to what Buddha had proposed, law of karma. Everything that we do is going to come back to us and hit us. If we do good, good will be back to us. If we do not so good, we have to face the consequences. So if our basic elements are in trouble, our plants and animals are facing, next will be us. We need to use our research or our search to not just find, but walk on the right path. It is time we redefine what is growth and development. Yes, materialistic growth is important, but so is the spiritual growth. So is a limit on it, so that we do this growth in some limits so that it doesn't destroy the contextual local ecosystem. There has been a lot of greenwashing these days by many big companies who are destroying the planet by launching schemes which will greenwash and show that we are doing something for the planet. But those greenwashing will not work till we address the basic elements of restoring the health of soil, water, and air. We need to give importance to indigenous community and localization. Till we don't redefine our path, maybe as humanity we have walked on a path which is not so right. We need to step back and find a path which is more eco-friendly, which is more sustainable, which takes people along, which is more spiritual, which doesn't serve agenda of few people, and follow that new path which will give us the right direction. Gandhi, the great Mahatma Gandhi, said this 50 years back, that what will help the planet is plain living and high thinking. But we have got too much influenced by the Western culture, where the whole focus or emphasis of everybody is high living and plain thinking. It's time we redefine our beliefs and our opinions on what life is, how we need to live. And if we do that, we'll be able to address all the issues of climate change. Thank you so much. I can open it to questions now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dileep Jain. It was an amazing presentation and very inspirational. Thank you so much for joining us. And participants, if you have any questions, please do write to us in the chat box. Our keynote speakers are available here to clarify our doubts. So before we move on to the technical session, so we can capture a group photograph together, I request everyone to keep the virtual background and enable your camera. And before that, I will re-show you our virtual platform. Some of them were not available yesterday. So once again, I'm taking you to the virtual platform.
Yeah, so can I go to the questions?
Yes, if the questions are there, we can surely take up some questions.
Yeah, so there is a question of how to regulate and control red tapeism, which are working as a satellite under capitalist lobby. So I think I don't know if I have a very clear answer, but one needs to understand this whole democracy. Everything in the world has evolved in last thousands of years, but democracy is not evolved, and we are made to believe that democracy is for the people, of the people, by the people. But that's not true. It's for few at the top. It's a myth being sold to us that it is working for everyone, and it then feeds the capitalist lobby. uh, I think till the masses don't come together to save their local ecosystem, it's not going to work. And if decentralization, like a village in India, which is good with its soil, water, and air, which is not influenced by any of the growth capitalist development model, is very happy and content. It doesn't need money for its survival. It can grow its food. It has its water. But when the growth pollutes their soil and water, they are dependent on the whole economy, and they can't even live in their village, nor can get worthwhile employment outside. So I think it's more of a matter of education, where our beliefs need to change, that capitalism or democracy is not working. We need to redefine what growth is and relook at it. But yeah, I don't have a very clear answer what is the best way. But I know for sure that till we don't reclaim our soil, water, and air, we are heading on a wrong path.
Yes, thank you so much, sir, for clarifying the query from Mr. Harish Kumar. I hope that is clear, and sir has given his valuable words to us. So I would be just sharing my screen to show you